this presentation because most often when I go around to different places, to schools and libraries, I come to a place and they ask me, what is Wikipedia? And they ask me, how do I edit? Can I edit? Can everyone really edit? And then I come to a place where most people actually know that anyone can edit on Wikipedia, and then there is not very much left to say, I guess. No, I'm just kidding. But the thing is that it's quite hard to talk when people actually know something. But I'll try to skip all the descriptive parts and just go into the matter. The globality on Wikipedia, which it's a really interesting subject. My name is Luth, and I'm called Tanzania on the Swedish language Wikipedia, and I've been writing there for 5 years almost. I've done almost 40,000 edits and written a couple of thousands of articles. But then sometimes I wonder when my friends write Facebook notices when they're out partying on the Saturday nights and I'm sitting there by my computer and writing yet another article. How did I end up here? And I think that for me the answer is quite similar to quite a lot of other Wikipedians. The answer lies partly in the first edit I ever made, which was an article I created. I had just done some genealogy, family background research, and found out this cool guy, William Anthony Granville, who became the president of Yale back in the 19th century and wrote a book in mathematics that is still used in the United States education system. But he had an article on the English language Wikipedia and one on the Vietnamese language Wikipedia. But he did not yet have one on the Swedish language Wikipedia. And I thought there are two possible reasons. The first one is that it's not relevant for the Swedish language Wikipedia. For some reason he's relevant for the Vietnamese language Wikipedia, even though he's the president of Yale, but he's not relevant for Swedish. And I thought that that's not a very likely reason. So the other only possible reason I could come up with is the fact that no one has written the article yet. So I sit here with information that I have, that I could use to write an article for Wikipedia, and then I thought I should use it to actually write this article, because if I would only sit here and complain about the lacking article on Wikipedia and don't write it, then I would just do the same thing as most other people do. I actually did the first edit, and then I'm here 40,000 edits later and a couple of Saturday nights without parties. But I think that this idea of feeling that one has some kind of information that is not out yet in Wikipedia is one of the basic reasons for why Wikipedians at all exist. And I think this is I think it's a very good logotype because it shows this. There are all those different alphabets, all those different languages, all this information that is actually out there. 30 million articles, almost 300 languages. I think Jimmy Wells said 287 on Skavlan last Friday. But there are still holes on the top. It's not complete yet. There are maybe other languages. There are maybe other alphabets. But mostly there is still information that is not there. And when I sit there with a piece of the puzzle, a piece of the jigsaw puzzle that fits into one of these holes, I think it's a really wonderful feeling to actually fill this little piece of puzzle into the hole and see the whole structure grow a little bit more. So before I start to criticize Wikipedia and talk about why it's not global, I think I should say some parts of the beautiful things with Wikipedia. It's the most linguistically diverse website in the world. 287 languages. I guess that's almost every spoken language in the world. I guess there are some more, but it's quite a lot of languages. Of course, not all of them are 4 million articles big like the English language Wikipedia, but there are actually quite a lot of them with more than 100,000 articles. I think it's more than 30 language editions with more than 100,000 articles. And it's alive and constantly changing. If I do an edit, I can't be sure that it will still be there 2 seconds later. Whatever I do can be reverted, revised, taken away, or added upon in the next second. If I write a book, then the text will be there. The text will be the same unless someone sits with a tippet or something to try to erase it. But otherwise it's the same. But Wikipedia is alive and constantly changing. And when other sites as Google try to censor their websites in order to be able to spread into China and different parts of the world, Wikipedia says no, there is no censorship. There is the information we have. This is the information we have, and if you don't accept it, we won't do otherwise either. Of course, it needs some kind of basic structure to work. One of the pillars, the one I will concern mostly today, is the pillar that Wikipedia is written from a neutral point of view. And the pillar is something that it's a guideline that is considered one of the most important guidelines. And of course, neutral point of view means quite a lot of different aspects. I think one good aspect that shows the concept is the discussions about the Sweden Democrats in Sweden and how to treat them in an article. Should one call them racists, which quite a lot of Swedes would say they are, or should one call them social conservatives, which the party itself says that they are? And I'd say that I think that the discussion is the most important part of the concept, because there's not one answer. But I still think it's quite good symbol for the entire problem and the entire pillar. One part of the pillar is the systemic bias, and this wonderful text talks quite a lot of the systemic bias and how this discriminates against unrepresented cultures and topics, and how it's created by the shared social and cultural characteristics of most editors and results in an imbalanced coverage of subjects on Wikipedia. So quite obviously, systemic bias is something quite bad. It's the part of Wikipedia that makes it not global yet. It may be any kind of thing that makes it not global, but it's anything that makes the globality lacking. And globality, this is a long definition of a quite straightforward concept, but basically globality is when the world is global. I'd say that it's quite hard for Wikipedia to be global before the world is global, and that there are some challenges in the world that won't be able to. That there are some problems in Wikipedia that won't be able to be overcome until the world is entirely global. But I think that Wikipedia is an important part in the way for both Wikipedia and the world to achieve globality. I mean, when Jimmy Wales said that Wikipedia should contain the sum of all human knowledge made accessible to all people in all different languages, it was quite a hard goal. It takes some days to achieve, some work. I started to think a little bit actually about one of the main parts of this entire problem, about the globality. Because if I say that Wikipedia should contain the sum of all human knowledge made accessible to all people in all different languages, and if the globe consists of all different alphabets in all different languages, we have to have those different languages. English language Wikipedia, 4 million articles, quite long articles, a lot of featured articles, quite a lot of well-balanced and well-referenced articles. We go to Sweden, 1.5 million articles, quite a lot of them stubs on different animals, but still quite long, quite well-referenced, and quite well-referenced. we go to Swahili language Wikipedia, 25,000 articles, quite a lot of short articles, not very many references, and quite a few users. We even have a couple of Wikipedia editions with just a handful of articles. And so I read this interview with a Tanzanian contributor to the English language Wikipedia, and he was asked why he didn't contribute to the Swahili language Wikipedia, and he said, "I don't really understand why. I don't really get why, because most Tanzanians, most Kenyans, the two countries where Swahili is most spoken, know English. They know English by heart. They learn English in schools, and they can take part of the English texts. Most people in Sweden are considered bilingual and can take part of the English texts, and they can read and they can write and they can contribute." I don't really have a straightforward answer to why I write in other languages than English. For me, I've mostly written in the Swedish language Wikipedia because I thought it to be. I'm quite of an idealist. I like this concept of building up from the scratch and seeing that during the years I've written on Wikipedia, it has grown from 150 to 200,000 articles into a 1.5 million articles project. Question.
But isn't the answer rather obvious? Because this argument for Tanzania and Kenya that most people know English from school. What does that mean? Know English? They are definitely not all of them participants on equal terms in this language community, and Swedes are not participants on equal terms, even if we are regarded to be rather good in English. We are poor, most of us,
exactly.
in English compared to a native English speaker.
I think that if you go to Tanzania, English is one of the two official languages, and that's of course a difference as compared to Sweden, because if it's an official language and especially in the bigger cities where internet is mostly used, if they know English as a mother tongue, and they live in a bigger city where English is more spoken than Swahili, I think it's quite obvious, or quite for this student at least, he thought it was obvious to write in English language Wikipedia because it was, of the two languages he knew equally well, the Wikipedia edition with the best already existing ground.
Yeah,
I think
he was probably part of the educated elite of that.
Exactly, and that's one thing I'll come back to. The problem with who is actually writing on Wikipedia, and the fact that quite a lot of the obstacles towards globality on Wikipedia arises from the fact that there are quite a few people actually wanting to write on Wikipedia, which gives rise to, of course, lacking perspectives and lacking articles. And I think I'll come back to this actually even now. When I sat down to think, I realized there are two major forms of systemic bias on Wikipedia. One more quantitative one, that is a dearth of articles and on neglected topics. Problems with the amount of articles and the number of articles and what the articles concern. Whereas the other one is more qualitative, concerns what is in the articles and how do the articles treat the different subjects. And to go to the first category, by neglected topics I don't necessarily mean that it's by choice, no, more by some kind of culturally, I don't know, as the definition from systemic bias, the systemic bias created by the shared social and cultural characteristics, blah blah blah. And I don't really think that topics are neglected. I more think that topics are not written about because they either are not part of the cultural and social context, or they are just not written about. I think that for the Swedish language Wikipedia, this is quite an obvious picture to show the problem. I mean, Swedish language Wikipedia is supposed to contain information about all countries in the world and be global, just as every other language edition. But still, most of the speakers live in Sweden. Some live in Finland and like 2 in Ukraine, and I don't think they write in Wikipedia. They're too old. But that, of course, this leads to the fact that quite a lot of the articles in Swedish language Wikipedia is written about Swedish phenomenon and Swedish things. I compared the amount of articles on Swedish cities and the amount of articles in Chinese cities, and there are approximately 5 times as many articles in Swedish cities than as Chinese cities, and in reality the ratio is quite the opposite, if not even more. I mean, if Swedish language Wikipedia should depict reality, there would be quite a lot of more articles on Chinese cities than on Swedish ones. I also think that this, on a more global level, shows how the dearth of neglected topics can arise. This is a picture showing the internet usage over the world as a percentage of the population. And we can see that in countries such as USA and Canada and Scandinavia, Central Europe, Australia, New Zealand, almost 100% of the population uses internet. Go to other parts of the world, we see Tanzania again, great parts of sub-Saharan Africa, Sahara, Southern Asia, parts of Central America, where the internet usage approaches 0. And of course this creates quite a lot of problems for encyclopedia trying to be global. If we again assume that people will write about things that concern themselves and that are quite close to their own reality, it's not very far-fetched to assume that Tanzania, Western Sahara, North Korea, Mongolia will not be equally treated as United States and Sweden. And I think that the same thing is shown by this picture, a worldwide density of geotagged Wikipedia entries. And geotagging is basically you write down the coordinates in the article, and then this picture shows which articles have coordinates of existing places on the planet. And we can see that eastern parts of the United States, Central Europe, Scandinavia, parts of India, Japan, parts of Australia and New Zealand are very light. A lot of geotagged Wikipedia entries. Of course, the dark spots in Canada and Russia doesn't mean that no one in Canada uses internet, or that no one, it shows more that no one lives in Canada. I mean, it's hard to write articles on cities that don't exist. And I think the same thing goes for Siberia, not like the most densely populated place on the planet, and of course the central parts of Australia. But still we have sub-Saharan Africa, we have China, Iran, Iraq, parts of Central Asia, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan. A lot of countries where there is just black spots. And I think that there is quite a clear correlation between this picture and this picture. And I think that this again shows how the problems with globality on Wikipedia is quite clearly correlated to the problems of globality in the world, and how lacking education, lacking internet usage, and lacking and of course great poverty is quite clear obstacles for people to write on their way to write on Wikipedia.
One question here, is it referring to the English Wikipedia or all language versions?
All language versions.
Yeah, that's correct.
And the other one, the other category which may seem a little more vague, I call the perspective bias in articles on many subjects. And I think that the first thing that is quite important for Swedish users is to distinguish between the Swedish Wikipedia and the Swedish language Wikipedia. I think this distinction is quite obvious for English speakers because, I mean, English Wikipedia is not an encyclopedia for England, but for all English speakers, English-speaking users in the world, United States, Australia, New Zealand, wherever. But for quite a lot of Swedes, the idea of a Swedish Wikipedia is quite common. They think that Swedish Wikipedia is the Wikipedia of Sweden, whereas in fact it's the Wikipedia of the Swedish language, and anyone who knows the Swedish language should be able to, in equal manners, understand and grasp the articles on Wikipedia. But I think that this misperception of what Wikipedia in Swedish really is gives rise to quite a lot of problems on Swedish Wikipedia. Let's take for example an article as the history of literature. If this article should be entirely global, it should concern all countries in the world equally much. And as there are quite a lot of countries in the world, maybe it should concern no country in specific if it hasn't provided some very vital piece of literature. But still, if we go to the article on the history of literature, we see parts that are entirely dedicated to Swedish literature. Of course, this is not quite global. Again, if it should be global, Ghana and Mongolia and Australia should have as much place on an article on the history of literature as Sweden.
But, I mean, is that a goal, really?
I should come back to exactly that question, because not in this slide, but in the following slide, I think. One of the things that Skavlan said when he visited, one of the things Jimmy Wales said when he visited Skavlan last Friday was that there's quite a similar content in different languages and small cultural differences. And then this quite counter argues and goes against my small oral essay on the history of literature. But then comes the question, is this good or bad? Is it good to have similar content in different languages and small cultural differences? There's this idea of featured articles on most language editions, articles that are considered to be among the best ones that are produced in the language and on the edition of the Wikipedia. And sometimes when an article translated from English language Wikipedia comes up in the nomination process, people say that, should this really be featured? This is just a translation from the English language Wikipedia. This is the same thing copied and translated, and no work has really been done. I think that translations are, of course, quite, I mean, articles on English language Wikipedia can be really good, and then why shouldn't we use them and translate them into Swedish Wikipedia as well? But I think I do agree with those saying that it has its bad sides. If one thing that, I mean, there are, if all articles on Swedish language Wikipedia would be the same as on the English language Wikipedia, then again comes the question of why does the Swedish Wikipedia even exist up? If all articles look exactly the same and most Swedes actually are able to read the article in English language Wikipedia, why do we even have language edition in Swedish? I think that all of these are just concepts that are good to discuss, and I don't think it's there's one obvious answer. But the last point on this slide, the Swedish and Finnish perspective legitimate. If we take it up to a higher level, on the front page of Wikipedia, there is one section with Swedish and Finnish name days, and one section with Scandinavian articles. And now it's quite obvious that we have two, as you talk about, two objectives, two goals that quite go against each other. And these sections has been quite heavily discussed. We have, on the one hand, a goal about globality. Wikipedia should be global and should treat all countries, all people in the same way. On the other hand, we have Swedish users. We have Swedish language users, but most of them live in Sweden and Finland. Should we build the encyclopedia on pillars and objectives, or should we build it on what the Wikipedia user actually would like to read on Wikipedia? And this has been quite a heavy discussion. I think that sometimes I'm one of those who think that it's quite good to have Finnish and Swedish name days and the Scandinavian article section, because I do think that most people using Swedish language Wikipedia have some kind of relation to either Sweden or Finland, and that there is therefore some kind of reason to actually give the users what they want. But of course it's quite problematic, and it has to be discussed, because everything that is just connected to those two countries quite obviously goes against the idea of globality. A lot of text. I try to conclude what the entire problem is actually narrowed down to, and I thought that what the writers want to write influence more on what is written than what the writers ought to write. Of course, this entire conclusion is quite problematic, but I'll come back more to that. But I think that is still what leads to the systemic bias. There are people who are quite interested in different parts, quite narrow parts, and it leads to lengthy and featured articles on weird subjects as electricity in Hakarp and toilets in Japan, to long articles on apparently quite not very important matters. But Mary Stubbs, that is very short articles on important subjects as society, Angkor Wat, and flamenco. And a guy on the technology review said the same thing. I won't read the entire text, but basically he says that there are more articles on Pokemon and female porn stars than on female novelists and sub-Saharan and places in sub-Saharan Africa. And as 85% of the Wikipedia writers are male, and a lot of them are quite young, Pokemon and female porn stars are have more weighted on Wikipedia than female novelists and places in sub-Saharan Africa. I do, however, not entirely agree with this guy. I like to turn the entire his entire argumentation a little upside down and say that this problem is also the solution. We have a quite clear set of relevance criteria on Swedish language Wikipedia and most language editions, and if there are relevance criteria for female porn stars and Pokemon, then all articles on female porn stars and Pokemon are relevant, and every newly created article on a Pokemon or or a female porn star is not a good article, but it's a good contribution to the project. The problem is, however, that there are not people who want to write about female novelists and places in sub-Saharan Africa. And the way for Wikipedia to try to overcome the entire problem is to attract more people from more groups to write more lengthy articles on a broader range of subjects. I don't really think that we can say to anyone that you should write about this and you should write about this, because we have holes, we lack these topics. But I think that we have to try to spread the user base and get people to write on a broader range of subjects. But then this is quite idealist, and the question arises, how do we do this? Because it may sound really good to just say we have to have more people from a great range of the world and everything, but it's quite hard to achieve. But I think there are a couple of good projects going on in the world, and one of my favorite ones was the Wiki Loves Monuments, the world's largest photo competition, arranged by Wikimedia Foundation. And they actually, for the first time, got pictures from Syria. People risked their lives going into Syria to take photos of monuments that may otherwise have been destroyed in the enraging civil war. And monuments that may be destroyed tomorrow now have a place on Wikipedia. Another thing, again, with Swahili, I'm quite obsessed with Swahili language Wikipedia, is that Google, back in 2010, arranged a competition among university students in Kenya and Tanzania to attract new users to Swahili language Wikipedia. And in a 2 weeks competition, they managed to get 2,000 new articles. There are female writing schools that have started to appear at different places in the world. In Sweden, for example. And I think that to attract more women is quite important if we want to have more articles on other things than female porn stars. 85% male is, I mean, all male contributors are good contributors. But if we want to have a more global perspective, I think that the females and the women are quite important too, and everything in between. I also think that competitions and projects are quite important for globality to occur. One of the competitions has concerned an article called "The List of the Biggest Cities per Country." This list lists the 15 biggest cities in every country. And when we started with the competition based on creating articles on cities that have no article yet, there were quite a lot of red links. That is, articles that hadn't been written yet. Today, most countries in the world actually have articles on their 15 biggest cities. And Swedish language Wikipedia is quite well known for its great amount of featured articles on birds. And it arises from a project on birds that has been really successful in Swedish language Wikipedia with some ornithologists and other interested users creating article after article after article after almost a set template to try to improve the coverage on birds on Swedish language Wikipedia. And finally, what a project I set up a couple of years ago to write about cuisines of the world. When we started, we had articles on four cuisines of different countries. Today, the number is 142. And I think that similar competitions and projects are quite important in the way to try to achieve a more global Wikipedia. And I think I have run out of time already. If there's any questions, please just ask. Otherwise, we'll move over to the next question.
No, well, comment rather. I mean, this seems to be a good way, because it's also the problem of, I mean, you cannot just order people to write articles about anything, you have to have some knowledge. And
Yeah.
you have to have some knowledge and interest in it, and to attract the people who have knowledge and interest in these items must be the key to it.
Yeah, I think so too, because one has to remember that it's the one part of Wikipedia is the idealist base. One has to be some kind of idealist, sit there for free and write articles for free, which quite a little credit out of it. And still one has to have people who have some kind of knowledge. I mean, it's really important with the users too, who just sit there and try to proofread and take away bad edits and bugs and other things. But it's quite important also to have those people who know what they're writing about. And I think that the way to attract those, not by waiting for those to come to Wikipedia, but actually to go to their places, to go to universities, to go to ornithologist groups or whatever it might be, to try to attract new users.
But I mean, on Wikipedia, everyone can contribute with anything, so to say, if it's seen to be relevant, compared to normal encyclopedias where you have a limited amount of space, so to say. When they created the National Encyclopedia, they decided we should have 20 books, they should contain X number of articles, and each type of articles, there should be so long article about the First World War, and so long article about the Second World War, etc., etc. And then it was limited. Here you can contribute with almost everything. And of course you will have some holes, but you have also a hole that is decided in a normal encyclopedia.
And I think it's really important to state that there is no, I mean there's infinite amount of space, and we can, instead of trying to make it global by writing one long article on cuisines of the world, we can write articles in 220, 250, 300 different cuisines if they are relevant for Wikipedia, and we have this. I mean, all contributors are good contributors. I think that's one important aspect of it as well, because I mean, for the first part, I mean, I don't have an academic degree in literature, even though I write quite a lot of articles on literature. But I use references, I use quotations, and so on and so on. And I think that it's dangerous if one stares blind into academic degrees and that kind of things, because we will never attract all professors in the world. They want more credit and money than I want. But
there are quite a few, I think, that could be engaged.
I think so too, and
checking and contributing in their specific.
It's actually growing. You're quite right. But I think that we have to be open to all kind of people, because
the
we want to have exactly, and the cooperation between those who just want to contribute with checking the spelling and those who want to take away hopes and whatever it might be.
Engaged crossword enthusiasts in Wikipedia, because they use Wikipedia so much.
Exactly. That's quite interesting to follow if there are some crosswords and about a specific person or a specific topic.
Yeah.
And then you can actually go in and see the statistics that it's raising that day that people are searching the information. But we also have one of the writers on Wikipedia. He is also checking this, the correctness of the crosswords before they are published. And he's actually checking the articles on Wikipedia in different language versions. So when he's doing his review of the crosswords, he is also writing on Wikipedia. So they are correct, because he thinks it's important that the users who will answer the crossword, they will actually go to Wikipedia to find the answers, and then therefore it must be correct. So he's working in parallel.
Oh, wonderful.
All right.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.